Hello, and thank you for using the TrainTrack software. In this video, we will be going over how to use TrainTrack and all the basic features. If you would like to see how to use the more advanced features, there is a separate video for this, and that goes over things like series, parent-child modules, uh, importing data, and things like that. When you first log into TrainTrack as a licensed user, you will get to the homepage that just has your number of active employees listed. All your navigation buttons will be at the top, so everything training related will be under training. You can hover over training and select what you'd like to see. Anything class related, employee related, just hover over and select which option you would like. Let's look at the report, or let's look at the training list first. You can either click on training or click on view edit, and you will see your training list. Everything will be sorted alphabetically for you, but you can always click on any column headers to sort one way and click again to sort the opposite direction. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the screen, you will be able to select a different status to show. So by default, you will see only your active training records, but if you'd rather see all your inactive training records, you can select inactive and then press go. You will also notice that in TrainTrack, most pages have this help on this page link, which is really helpful if you're getting started and you're not sure what column means or how to perform some sort of task on that screen. So if you click on help on this page, it will take you to something that explains exactly how to view your training list, and have a lot of step-by-step instructions with images to really help you get familiar with the software. If you'd like to add a training, you would hover over training and click on add training. From here, you can type in a training number, or sorry, training title, and a number. Keep in mind that every employee and training record in TrainTrack must have a unique ID number. So this doesn't have to be a number. It could be a combination of numbers, letters, whatever you prefer, just as long as every record has a unique number. Revision will be 0 by default, but you can always start with a different revision if you would like. This could also be alphanumeric. And then you would want to enter a release date. This could be a future date, a current date, a past date. You just want to always have a release date because this is how TrainTrack calculates due dates. Either the release date plus the grace period, which is the number of days employees have to complete a training before it's past due, or it's the employee's start date plus the grace period, whichever one comes later. So you always want to have your release dates entered in this field. Then you can select an expiration period. So let's say I know that employees will have to take this training once a year. So I would put 12 and then select months or days. So you can select, 90 days, or, 12 months. As frequently as you'd like your employees to get retrained on a training, you can enter the numeric value here and then select months or days to the right. The grace period, like I mentioned, is the number of days your employees have to complete a training before it's past due. So you can actually set a default grace period by going to settings and default expiration. So, but you can always change this to be any other date that you prefer. You can select the number of hours and then select the status. So if you're not ready to go live with a training, or if you are looking at a training that needs to be made inactive, you would just go to status and change the status here on this drop down. Next, you can select a training type from a list of your training types. So this example will be safety. So let's select that. And you can manage all of your lookup list items, such as your training types and things like your department list, job title list, shifts, locations, and all that by going to list and then selecting which lookup list item you would like to manage. And there is a separate video that goes all about that's going over all about managing your lookup list items. You can then select a training or document owner from your dropdown of active employees here. And just remember that when you type in the first few letters of a last name, you will be taken to that spot on the list. So a little shortcut. And lastly, you can enter a description. This is an optional field. You can use this um, for any purpose that you would like. Then you would click add and you're all set. The training has been added for you and you'll be taken back to your training list. Now let's go and locate the training we just added. And now you will be able to link a file to it. What you can do is either link a file by pasting in a link. So any sort of, safety training you found maybe on YouTube or like a website you'd like your employees to review. Anything web accessible, like a SharePoint file would even work, or you can upload a file directly to the training. So if you'd rather upload a file, you can click on upload, then choose file, and then select which file you'd like to upload, click open, and click upload. Once you click upload, you'll be taken back to the training detail, and then you can click on the link to review the file and make sure it's the right file and all that. So once we have our training all set up, we can now add requirements. So down here at the bottom, you can require job titles, departments, or individuals. The process is the same for all, so let's go ahead and add a couple department or job titles. You will click on Add Required Job Titles. And a little shortcut, if you have a training that is required for all employees, so you can just select all from the dropdown and click Add, and this will make the training required for all active employees on your employee list. Otherwise, you can select actual different job titles. So let's go ahead and select Analyst. And you'll notice the screen kind of resets. This is just so that it's easier for you to add any additional required job titles. You can add as many as you'd like, click Add. Then when you're all set, click on Back to Training Detail. You can also do the same for departments. You would click on Required Departments, Add Required Departments, select them from your list, click Add, select any other ones, then go back to Training Detail. Same process for required individuals. You would click on Add Required Individuals, select any employees, and then when you're all set, click on Back to Training Detail, and you will be taken back to this screen. Now that we've added some requirements, you will notice that under status, we now have employees listed with a status of needed because we just added those requirements and they have not completed the training yet. And you'll notice that also the due date has been calculated to be exactly 10 days after the training was released, because that is one of the two ways that due dates are calculated in TrainTrack. If you need to edit or delete requirements, you can simply go to whichever requirement you'd like to delete or edit. Click on Delete Required Job Titles. Make sure you're clicking on the Delete Required Job Titles, not on the job title itself, because if you click on the job title itself and then delete job title, you will delete the actual job title and everything associated with it. So please be careful to go to Required Department, Job Title, Individual, and then click this link that says Delete Required Job Titles. You'll click there. And if it's analyst you'd like to delete, you can click delete. Otherwise, you can use the record count buttons at the top here to click next until you find which requirement you want to delete. Then you can click delete to confirm deletion. Now that you're all set, you will notice that we have slightly less required individuals listed since we just deleted that requirement. This is the same for deleting required departments and deleting required individuals. If you need to add exceptions for any reason, you can go to exceptions and click on add exception. On this screen, you will be able to add exceptions for any employees, departments, job titles, and keep in mind that you can assign multiple job titles to your employees in TrainTrack. So if someone has CSR as an additional job title, not their primary job title, they will also be listed as an exception. And if you're not familiar, exception just means that although the rest of, the job titles and departments and, if the whole company needs a training, if someone does not need a training, whereas the rest of their team may, you can add them as an exception and they will not show up as required or due for that training. So once you're done adding whichever exceptions you need, you can type in a reason if you want, then you can click add, and now this individual, this department, and everyone in it, as well as this job title or additional job title, anyone who has those listed for them will not be required to complete this training. Okay, so now we've set up our training, we've added requirements. We now want to notify employees that training is due. For that, you can set up automatic email notices by going to settings and automatic email. On this top portion, you'll just want to fill out your mail server settings. But if you are hosted on our cloud servers, have one of our cloud subscriptions, then we take care of this portion for you. If you have the installed version of TrainTrack, you'll want to talk to your IT department to get your server name, the account and password information for the email account you'd like to send the email notices from. All right, then in this section, you would put your email or whoever the administrator is, and what you can do is send a test message. So what this will do is send a test message to make sure that you're able to send emails from TrainTrack. So once you see this message that says your test message has been sent, that means everything is configured correctly, and you can now start enabling due notices. So to enable your notices, you just have to check off this box. So to disable, you would uncheck it like this. To enable, you would check it off. So disabled, enabled. When they're checked off, you have enabled notices. So you have the due to employees. This will send a notice to your employees when they have training due or expiring within the next 30 days. And those notices will be repeated every 10 days until the training has been completed. You can also enable the due to supervisors emails. And same thing, they'll get an email anytime one of their subordinates has training due or expiring within 30 days and repeated every 10 days. These last two are scheduled class reminders you can send to either employees or supervisors. That just notifies them that they have a class scheduled within the next 3 days so that they don't forget to attend. So once you check off whichever notices you'd like enabled, click on Save Changes and you're all set. Next time a licensed user logs in, those notices will all be sent out. Here you can also put your login link to your TrainTrack website. And whenever you add a new employee, you will see a message that you'll be able to send to them if you would like, letting them know what their login credentials are and which link to use to log into TrainTrack. So I would go ahead and whenever you're on, maybe open a new tab and go to your TrainTrack login screen, paste in your TrainTrack login link into here and click Save Changes. Okay, so we've notified employees that training is due, so now we probably want them to complete the training. So if we go back to training and select that safety training that we created, we can now either set up an exam or schedule a class for this training. If you want to set up an exam, you can go to exam questions and view exam questions. You will type in the question, so you'll put question number 1, whatever the question is. So let's say we're going to do something as easy as I have read and understood the required material. It could be as simple as this, a 1-question exam, or it could be a multiple question with multiple answers, as many answers as you want per question. But you'll click add and you'll see that the question was now added. If you wanted to add a second question, you can go put number 2, put the question in here, click add. To add answers, you would click on the question, and then at the bottom, click on Add Answers. You'll put letter answer A, that will be yes, and you'll put a point value. You can put any point value greater than 0, and then click on Add Answer, and the screen will reset for you to add another answer. This will be our incorrect answer, so the point value will be 0. You'll click on Add Answer, and if you're wanting to add C and D and so on, you can keep going, but for this question, we'll just have A and B. Go back to question detail, and now here's your question, and here are the available answers. If you go to the active list of questions, you can edit the passing score and see test details. By default, the passing score will be 80, but you can always change this to be whatever you'd like. So I would want my employees to get 100 out of 100 possible points. You can change that, or you can leave it at 80 since if they get it right, they'll get 100%, which is greater than 80. This is mainly if you have, like 10 question exams that are worth more than the passing score will be greater than 80. All right, so once you're all done with this, you can go back to question list, and in the web interface, you can actually add an image to your exam questions. If you wanted to do that for this question, you would click on the question number or the question itself, and then here you'll see an option to upload an image. If you wanted to do that, you can select choose file, and then you can select whichever uh, image you want to upload, click open, and click upload. Now, when you go back to question detail, you will see that image added. All right, the other option is to enroll your employees in a class for that training. So if you click on classes, view enroll, you will see a list of any of your upcoming training classes that are scheduled. If you want to add a new class, you can go to class and add class and select which training you want to schedule a class for. Again, if you type in the first few letters of a training, you will see that selected, and then you can select any sort of instructor if you would like. This is an optional field. The rest are required aside from additional info. You can select a start date. You can select an end date. This could be a multi-day class, so you can, put the next date or same date, whatever you prefer. Then you would put in any sort of end time, start time, and select a class location. You can manage your class locations by going to lists, class locations. You can put your any sort of additional information. This is also an optional field. You don't have to put anything there, but once you're all done, you can click on add class and the form will reset for you to schedule another class. Otherwise, if you're done, you can click on back to class list. Here, you can click on the class ID of whatever training to open the class detail screen. So if you need to make any changes, you can edit most of this information up here at the top and click on Save Changes once you've made the changes you need to make. And then down at the bottom, you can select if you want to enroll employees in a class, print a sign-in sheet, enter completions. So let's go ahead and enroll some employees. Click on Enroll in this class and select any employees that you want to enroll. You'll be prompted to send an email message if you prefer. Otherwise, you can click on enroll another employee or go back to class detail. Let's go ahead and enroll a couple more. And again, if you type in the first few letters of the name or last name, you can go to that spot on the list. Okay, so let's say we just want to enroll those three. You can click on return to class detail, and here are the 3 employees we just enrolled. If you would like to add completions for this class, you simply can click on enter completions. And you can edit any of these dates if they need to be edited, or if someone did not attend class, you just can simply delete the completion date and the completion will not get added. Keep in mind that something does have to be, there has to be a date listed for the first record in the top row here. If you don't need to add a completion for this employee, so just go ahead and add it anyways, and then I'll show you later how you can delete it super quickly. It's just that the first row must contain a date for the rest of them to properly add. Okay, so then once you're all set, you can, change the, change any of the dates. You can edit them. When you're all done, click on Mark All Complete, and that will add the completions to anyone that has a completion date. So these 2 records would be added. If you want to go back to class detail, you can actually print a sign-in sheet if you needed to. So you click on class sign-in sheet, and then from this screen, you can actually right-click and print or save as from here. Okay, so that is how you schedule classes. And if you need to see all your previously completed classes, you can go to class and completed classes. All right, so if you want to add completions, I just showed you how you can add completions directly from the class screen, but let's say you want to add completions for a whole bunch of people on a specific training. So let's go ahead and scroll down to our safety training. So if you want to add completions for a bunch of individuals all at once, you can click on Mark All Complete and then set a date. So you can type in any date here, click Set Date, and that date will be populated in this date completed field. Same thing here, the top row must contain a date and be passed, so -1, just leave it all there. And if this person does not need completion, you can just quickly delete it later, so leave this one intact, and the rest you can either delete for anyone that does not need a completion added, or you can edit the completion date. Make sure that the completions you're entering are current dates or past dates. Traintrack will not accept any future completion dates. All right, so then now that we are all set with editing and deleting any dates we don't want added, now just click on Add Records, and everybody that had a date listed for them will have a completion added, and you'll notice the status changed to completed, and the rest of the employees will still say needed if they did not have a completion listed there. Back to training detail, and you're all set. If you just have one completion to add or two, and it's easier for you to add them individually, you can click on Complete or History and click on Add Completion Records. Here you can select any employee name, so select a completion date that's not in the future. You can enter a cost score. You can also link a file to the completion if you would like, maybe some sort of SharePoint certificate, whatever you want. Then click Add, and the screen will reset for you to add another completion if you wanted to. You can, of course, select a date, cost score, all that. Link a file by just pasting in the web accessible link and click Add. When you're all set, you can go back to training detail, and you will now notice that if you go to your completion screen, you will see the completions that we just added. Keep in mind the complete tab will show you only the most recent unexpired completions. The history tab will show you all historical completions, even if they were failed or if they're expired now. Pretty much all historical completions will be in history, whereas complete will show you just the most recent completion that's not expired. Okay, so that is another way to add completions. You can also add completions by importing them, but that will be covered in the advanced class. So please check that out if you would like to learn more on how to import all sorts of different records. Okay, and lastly, you can add completions directly from the employee detail. So if you go to employee, select any employee name, and click on Mark All Complete. So this is really similar to the Mark All Complete from the training side, but over there you can add completions for multiple employees for that training. From the employee side, you can add completions for a whole bunch of different training records for one employee. So same thing, you would set a date, click Set Date, delete any dates you don't want to add completions for, edit any dates, and then when you're all set, scroll down and click on Add Records. Now, all the training records that have a completion date listed will get a completion added. All right, since we're talking about employees, let's go ahead and take a look at the employee list. Really similar to the training list, you can sort by any of the column headers, click once, click twice to sort the opposite direction. And if you scroll to the very bottom, you can select if you'd like to see just your inactive employee records. To open an employee record, you can just click on the employee last name and it will take you to the employee details screen. To add a new employee, you can hover over employee and click on add employee, or you can import employee records by going to import and then employees. You can do the same thing for your training records, as well as exam question and answers, completions, and requirements. Let's go over the employee detail fields here. So you'll have basic information like their name, ID number. Of course, this has to be a unique. There's a number that no two employees can have the same ID number. Their phone numbers, their department, you can select from a list of all of your departments, their job title, and whatever shift they work, their location, employee type, that status drop down is right here in the middle. You can also link a file to your employee record. So if you have a whole folder on SharePoint with all of your employee files, you can go ahead and link that here in this field. You can also select who their supervisor is from a list of all of your active employees here. You can enter in their email address, and keep in mind, you can always go to settings and default login to select what the default login settings will be for your employees. So I think by default, it's going to say email is the default login and their ID number is going to be their temporary password. You can always change this by going to settings if you prefer that they log in, with their email, both, for their username and password the first time they log in. But keep in mind, if that is the case, or if you haven't changed your settings yet, you always want to make sure that the email field is filled out the very first time you add your employee record or import it, so that TrainTrack can automatically create a login for that. There's also this other field you can use for anything you'd like, and the start and end dates. Start date, we really recommend that you have a start date entered for all of your employees because, like I said, that's going to be the other way that TrainTrack calculates due dates. Start date plus the grace period or the release date plus the grace period, whichever one comes later. All right, so that's all the employee information at the top. Down below, you can see all the relating information. So first will be the status of required training. This will be all the training required for that employee and the status. You'll see, some are completed, some are expired, some are needed. You can then see their training history. This will show you, all the attempts, all the completions they had historically. You can also add additional job titles. So here we have this employee, in the finance department, job title is payroll. If you want to add an additional job title to them, you will click there and select any other additional job titles for them. And when you do that and click add, all the training required for the additional job title will be automatically required for the employee um, as well. You can also see their job title history and all their completed exams will be listed here if they completed any. Alrighty, so if we go to, I forgot to mention one thing, I apologize. If you go to your training list and click on history, you will actually be able to link or upload a file to each completion record. So let's say I wanted to upload a completion certificate for this completion here. I would click on upload, select a file, completion certificate, click open, and click on upload. And then once it's done, you will be able to go back to history and you will see that file that you uploaded here. You can click on it and see that completion certificate. All right, so we'll briefly cover the lookup list items and how they work. So to see all your lookup list items, you can hover over list and select which list you'd like to see. If you want to see a list of all your departments, you would click on departments. They'll be listed alphabetically for you here, and you can always add a new department here on the bottom. And then you can always manage existing departments by clicking on the department name. And on this screen, you can edit the name if you need to. You can see what training is required for this department, as well as the employees who have that department listed on their employee record. You can do the same thing for job titles as well. You can click on a job title to see which employees have that listed as a job title and which employees have that job title listed as an additional job title. So if you go here, you'll see, it's a bad example. Here we go. So click on a job title. You can see the required training and the employees that have that job title or additional job title. The rest are, there's several different types of lookup list items, and you can manage them the same way. So if you need to edit your locations, add a new location at the bottom, click on another location to edit the location name, save changes, or if you want to delete an item, you can just click on the name and then click on delete, then confirm deletion. Alrighty, let's talk about users really quickly. So keep in mind that your employees and users are slightly different because you can have hundreds of employees, but only 2 users logging in to TrainTrack to actually, manage everyone's training. Or you can have all of your hundreds of employees logging in as users also and taking their training and exams. So just because someone is an employee doesn't mean they're going to be automatically listed as a user unless you have those default settings set. And whenever you create the employee record, you have that information filled out, such as, their email address. So if you ever need to manage your users, the people that are actually logging into TrainTrack, you will want to go to users, view edit, and this will take you to your user list. So instead of having just the employees' first and last names, it'll list their actual username with what they're logging into TrainTrack with. So some people can be logging in with their email address, some people can be logging in with their first name dot last name. It's whatever you have your default settings set to. But if you ever need to edit a user, you can just click on their name. And if you need to change their user level to be, an administrator, limited, read-only, whatever you need to do there, you can also associate the employee who is logging in. So, TrainTrack isn't, if you don't have an employee associated with the user, TrainTrack isn't going to know who this user is or who the employee is logging in with this username. So you always want to make sure there's an employee associated with the username. And this is also how TrainTrack knows which exams are required for that employee. If someone is, no longer needing to access TrainTrack, you can either make them inactive or you can just delete the user. If you need to reset someone's password, if they can't log in, you can click on this link that says reset password and type in a temporary password in this field and click reset. To see all of your inactive employees, so let's say somebody went on leave and you wanted to free up a user license to use on somebody else, but now that person is back, you can now make the temporary user taken over for them inactive, and then go to your inactive list and make the other employee active again. So keep in mind when you delete a user or make them inactive, it does free up a user license to use for somebody else. User licenses are not shareable, but they are transferable. All right, let's talk about a few settings. So we talked about automatic emails. If you go to default expiration, this can give you the option to change how often passwords expire, and also your default grace period could be set here. So make any needed changes and click on Save Changes. And lastly is the default login. So how you want your employees logging in to TrainTrack. So by default, it's going to log them in with or create a login using their email for the login name, and temporary password will be their ID number, but you can always change this to be, email for both or ID number for both, whatever you would like. There's also the option to use first not last name, but we don't recommend using that. There's more chances of issues with that in case two people have the same name or multiple last names. They're not sure of the order, or if there's a space or a hyphen or whatever. So just use email and or ID for one or the other or both. All right, save changes and you're all done. All right, lastly, let's talk about reports. So on the report menu here at the top, you'll click on reports. Everything will be grouped together. So all your class reports will be at the top, so you can print, your class rosters and completed class rosters. Then you have your complete reports. So these are going to be all completions for a selected date range, but this will show you just the most recent, not expired completion. The completed trainings, the next section here, will show you all completions within a date range you select, but it will also include completions that are now expired. The training history, this bottom one, is going to be slightly different than the rest because this will show you all completions within a date range. So all historical completions, whether they've been failed, expired, or if they're still completed, but also include data for employees and training records that are now inactive. So not deleted, but inactive. Then you have your due report. So you can select, training due that you want to see within a selected number of days. Keep in mind for the due and status reports, you will want to make sure that there's actually requirements added to those training records before they'll show up on the due and status reports. So if you're missing somebody, just make sure you go to that training record and make sure that that employee actually is listed as required. Then you have your employee training reports, so things like your employee list, their job titles, supervisors. Required training reports will show you all the training or all the requirements for each training and also exceptions for each training. Status will show you status of all the required training, and training reports will show you things like your exam questions and answers, your training lists and ones that include inactive, training also, and some that include all your series and parent-child modules as well. I know I'm mentioning parent-child modules and series, and we didn't go over that because that will be covered in the advanced class. So check out that recording if you are interested to learn how series works and how parent-child modules work. Essentially, series can be used to, there's several different ways you can use series. Either if you have 3 training modules and you want your employees to not be able to take the second in the series until the first one's completed and can't take the third till the second one's completed, you can set up series that way. You can use Series if you want to have a refresher training. So a really in-depth training, let's say for CPR, but then a refresher course 6 months later, you can use Series for that. Or if you have a training that requires a training class and only then they can take the required exam, you can set up Series for that. So really great feature. So I recommend watching that video. And then the other is the parent-child module. So basically you can designate one training to be the umbrella parent training, and then you can assign child modules underneath it, associated with it. And that way, if you just add a completion to the parent training, it automatically adds completions for all the children, and vice versa. If you add completions for all the related child trainings, the parent gets more complete. You can also use the parent-child feature to substitute one training for another and things like that. So, and then lastly here on the report menu, we have the audit trail report. So this will show you all the record changes made. And this last option will show you all the user logins, how many attempts, if they were successful or not, and things like that. Alrighty, I believe we went over everything here. Oh, lastly, actually forgot. So my training, so if you are a licensed user, you will see, this typical logins, this typical screens with all these menu options at the top. But if you wanted to take your own training, you can click on My Training, and you will be taken to the screen that exam user level will see when they log in to take a training. So on this screen, you can select which exam you'd like to take, click on start training, review whatever document that you're supposed to review before you take an exam, and then go back and click go to begin your exam. So then you'll take your training, you'll put in your password, and then click submit, and your completion will be added automatically. So we always recommend setting up exams for that reason, because once you click submit, you don't have to worry about adding a completion later. So now if I go back to my training, I can select a different training to complete, or I can click on home. And if I'm a licensed user, I'll be taken back to that full menu bar option in a different home screen. Okay, and last thing too is that if you ever need any assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out to us by phone, email, chat. Um, we can schedule a screen share meeting if you need some assistance. But we also have some really great help without contacting us directly if you don't want to. So if you hover over help, the first option is contents. This will show you, this is kind of like a user guide that shows you everything that TrainTrack can do and how to use the features. So if you want to learn about how to create an exam, you can click there, and it'll show you step-by-step instructions on the left and an illustration that correlates to that step on the right. And it's really helpful to, if you're a visual learner, then you'll want to look at the pictures. Otherwise, if you just like to read, you can look at the steps there on the left. And just keep in mind, there's a lot of different things to review, and it is kind of all grouped together by category. So everything employee related, lookup lists, reports, and all that, importing. But if you can't find what you're looking for on this front page, you can always click on index, and this will take you to a list of everything sorted by the keyword sort of. So you can scroll through here, or, control F on your keyboard and find, let's say exam. You can see if you want to learn how to add an exam or edit exams, or whatever you need to learn about. Whatever you like to learn about, just type in the, keyword, and it will take you to that spot of the help files. Alrighty, so that's the help file menu, but there's also the support tickets and knowledge base. So here you can go and click here, and of course you can always chat with a live agent if someone's online, but you can also submit a support ticket here at the bottom, or search for some sort of support article. Let's say you want to learn more about user permissions, you can type in user permissions, or you can type in part of an error message you see perhaps, or anything that you kind of more technical things you can type into the search bar, and it will take you to the results that relate to that. So here we typed in user permissions, and here, you can see what are specific permissions for each user level, and you can see down below what administrators can do, read only, so on and so forth. And a lot of times there will be either links to videos or a PDF like this, to where you can open a new tab and paste in that link if it's not clickable. And you can see a much more detailed explanation of all the user levels for each interface and what they can and cannot do. All right, let's go back here. Lastly, you can also send us an email if you'd like from here. And if you need to enter a new registration code, if you're just now renewing your subscription or if you purchase an additional user license, this is where you would go, help, and then enter registration code. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching this video. And again, there is another video that covers more advanced features. Thank you so much, and do not hesitate to reach out for any assistance. We also offer private training classes if you would like for just one or one person or your entire team. We'll be happy to schedule that. We have a lot of other training options. We have videos, we have the knowledge base, help files. We do private training classes, monthly live training classes for groups. We have even on-site training if you prefer one of our trainers to come on site, like to your location and do an on-site training there for a day or 3 or whatever you prefer. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Have a great day.